No treaties, no chains, just freedom, Earth's message to the stars. It started with a transmission. Crystal clear, no distortion, no delay, just a voice, too perfect to be human, too calm to be trusted, speaking directly into every satellite, every screen, every year on Earth. Your species has reached technological maturity. You are now eligible to join the accorded systems. No one knew where it came from. No signal trail. No source. Just presence. And for the first time in human history, we weren't wondering if we were alone. We were being invited. Or so they said. The message repeated every 6 hours for 3 days straight. Governments scrambled. Military satellites scanned the skies. Civilian panic flared and faded, depending on what corner of the world you stood in. Then the ships came. Not in war. Not in force. Just 3. Sleek. Black. Smooth as obsidian. They didn't roar across the sky. They appeared, hovering silently over 3 major cities. Beijing, Nairobi, Buenos Aires. No weapons, no movement, just waiting. And then, from each ship, a single envoy stepped forward. Tall, thin, eyes like mirrors, voice like rain on metal. They didn't call themselves invaders. They called themselves custodians, representatives of something called the Galactic Union. They wore no armor, carried no weapons. They didn't need to, because their strongest weapon was certainty. They said humanity had reached the edge of its chaos, that this was our opportunity to evolve, to join a greater civilization, a future free of war, hunger, disease, a future built on order. They offered us 3 things: structure, security, survival. But there was a cost. We have to sign the accord. It wasn't a contract. Not really. It was a surrender, wrapped in the language of progress. Earth's leaders met behind closed doors. For once, the world spoke as one. Everyone felt the weight of what was happening. Join the stars. Become part of something bigger. It sounded good, too good. But then one man stood up. Not a politician, not a scientist, a general, retired, out of the game. His name was Commander Elias Rourke, and he saw something the others didn't. He looked past the speeches, past the promises. He looked at history, and he asked one simple question. If they're offering peace, what happened to the civilizations that said no? No one answered. Not the envoys, not the other leaders, not the skies, because deep down they all felt it. This wasn't an invitation. It was a test, and humanity's answer would define its future. Elias Rourke didn't wait for consensus. He went to the press, to the people. He stood in front of every camera on Earth and said the words that would echo into the stars. We are not afraid. We will not kneel. We do not need your chains dressed as treaties. We are flawed. We are messy. We are human. But we are free. The next day, the envoys left. No farewell. No message. No retaliation. Just silence. As if they were letting that moment hang, waiting to see what we do next. That silence lasted exactly 6 days. And then Earth went dark. Not from bombs. From control. Satellites stopped responding. Space stations were cut off. Deep space telescopes blacked out like someone had pulled a curtain over the sky. Every signal Earth tried to send was blocked. No trade. No communications. No escape. A silent siege from above. The Galactic Union hadn't declared war. They didn't need to. They simply disconnected us from the galaxy, like muting a child who had spoken out of turn. And then, they waited. They thought we'd break, that we'd come crawling back, begging for access, for security, for the chance to survive. But Earth didn't break. We adapted. We fell back on what we knew best, how to survive when no one was coming to help. And beneath that silence, something else started to grow. Not desperation, not fear, defiance. We didn't send apologies. We didn't send envoys. We sent a single signal. Short, direct, carried on every frequency we could reach, through buried cables, old satellites, even solar flares. 3 words. We are free. The stars stopped speaking. For the first time in modern history, Earth was utterly, completely alone. No data from satellites. No pings from deep space probes. No signals bouncing off anything outside the solar system. It was like the rest of the galaxy had gone dark. And maybe that was the plan. Because silence, in the hands of a power like the Union, wasn't emptiness. It was pressure, a psychological chokehold. No ships invaded, no missiles fired, just isolation. Cold, quiet, strategic. Earth's greatest fear wasn't war, it was irrelevance. And that's exactly what we became. A locked world, a message to others. This is what happens when you say no. Governments panicked behind closed doors. Economies stumbled. Satellites fell out of sync. AI networks went dark, and interstellar tech partnerships went silent. Some countries begged for re-engagement. Others blamed Elias Rourke for dooming humanity. But the people, the ones who didn't have anything to lose, they started thinking differently. They stopped waiting for someone to save them, and they started preparing. Underground labs came online. Hidden bunkers, decommissioned during peacetime, were reopened. Hackers began quietly rebuilding satellite networks using stolen Union tech. Scientists reverse-engineered every inch of alien residue left behind. Even schoolchildren were learning how to recognize orbital movement patterns. Earth didn't collapse. It focused. In silence, we became dangerous. Because while the Union turned their back on us, they also stopped watching us closely. And Earth does its best work when no one's looking. 10 months after the shutdown, strange activity started happening near the asteroid belt. A mining station that had gone silent came back online, broadcasting on a frequency no one recognized. Not human, not alien, something new, a signal that flickered in rhythm, almost like code, almost like language. It said one word, listening. That word lit a fire beneath the surface. Encrypted forums, black channels, pirate radio. The message spread because someone, somewhere, was watching what Earth had done, and they weren't the Union. At first, we didn't respond. Too risky. But the hunger to connect again, it was strong. It had always been strong. So we answered. We didn't send another, "We are free." We sent an invitation. Not to the Union. Not to their empire. To the ones watching from the edges. The ones hiding in the cracks. If you hear us, we're still here. No answer came. Not right away. But strange things started to happen. Supply drones that had once belonged to the Union started showing up off course. Abandoned. Empty. Inside, blueprints, tech schematics, biological data from species we'd never encountered before. Someone was helping us. Quietly. Illegally. But deliberately. The Union must have known. They didn't strike. They didn't escalate. They just tightened the silence. Turned it from exile into suffocation. No access to star charts. No wormhole data. No fuel for the few ships we had left orbiting. It was like trying to survive in a burning house while someone locked every door and whispered, "You'll learn your place eventually." But Earth didn't beg. We built ships. Not beautiful. Not sleek. But strong. Fast. Ghost-coded. We weren't trying to rejoin the galaxy. We were preparing to break back in. On our own terms. No treaties. No chains. Just freedom. We trained in caves. Under oceans. In orbit. We studied everything the Union had once shown us. Not to mimic. To outsmart. And as the months dragged on, Earth changed. Not in its maps. Not in its laws. In its mindset. We stopped thinking like a planet. We started thinking like a rebellion. It didn't start with armies. It started with a shipment. One Union transport ship. Small. Routine. Assigned to observe and correct planetary deviation. That's what the logs said. Officially, it was just a recon crew, there to check if Earth had changed its mind. Unofficially, it was a test. A reminder. A leash sent to snap back. The ship entered Earth's orbit without a sound. No announcement. No broadcast. Just appeared, high above what used to be North America. And when it landed, it didn't ask for permission. It descended near a mining colony in northern Canada. Remote. Isolated. Cold. They thought no one would care what happened out there. But they were wrong. There were no soldiers at that station. No diplomats. No weapons that could punch through Union armor. Just a few dozen people. Miners. Mechanics. Families. People who hadn't seen the sun in weeks. The Union crew disembarked like they owned the place. Tall. Silent. In sleek armor that shimmered with power. Their faces weren't visible, just black glass and cold reflections. They scanned the outpost, labeled equipment, marked supplies. Then, without warning, they began to confiscate Earth tech, ship parts, and people. 3 workers were restrained and dragged to the edge of the landing ramp. No names given, no reasons, just scanned and taken. That was their mistake, because among those miners was a girl named Sarah, 18. No military training, no politics, just a quick mind and a short fuse. She saw her brother get pushed down by a Union enforcer, and something inside her broke. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She moved straight into the control room. She uploaded a video feed. Nothing fancy, just her voice, her face, her fury. This is Earth, and we didn't say yes. Then she hit the failsafe. The outpost went dark. Power offline. Communications jammed. And every door in the facility sealed tight, except one. The maintenance shaft beneath the landing pad. A shaft she'd spent months reinforcing in secret. The explosion didn't take out the entire ship. Just enough. It folded one wing, crippled the core engine, scattered alien plating across half a mile of ice. The Union responded. Fast. Within an hour, 4 drone ships were overhead, scanning for survivors, broadcasting warnings in every known Earth language. Unauthorized interference with interstellar personnel is a breach of Accord protocol. Sarah didn't care. Neither did the miners. They didn't run. They stayed. And they sent one more signal before the Union jammed them completely. 3 words. Not your world. That was the moment. The moment the silence cracked. The message got out. Bounced through old satellites. Through deep-sea cables. Through relay towers built in abandoned places. And somehow, some way, it didn't just echo across Earth. It leaked into the black, across the stars. The galaxy was listening. And for the first time, they heard defiance. Real defiance. Not from politicians. Not from fleets. From people. Sarah's video spread like wildfire. Translated, subtitled, encrypted, re-uploaded 1,000 times across black markets and outlaw data streams. And it didn't stop there. Across the galaxy, in places the Union barely remembered, others started whispering. We didn't say yes either. And back on Earth, everything changed, because we didn't wait for the next ship to land. We built beacons, jammers, shields. We started fighting before the next punch was thrown. We weren't scared anymore. We were ready. And the next time a Union ship tried to land, it didn't even make it to the ground. It hit an invisible wall, Earth's new defense net, patched together by hackers, rogue engineers, and ex-military outcasts. And then it was gone. Not captured. Not damaged. Just gone. No one ever found the wreck. Only a scorch mark in the clouds where it used to be. The message was clear. Earth wasn't just resisting. It was adapting. And the galaxy? It started to believe. The silence didn't come back. Not this time. Because Earth's voice had broken through. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, places the Union never paid attention to, something unexpected began to happen. The whispers started. At first, they were just fragments. Old trade stations picking up scrambled bursts of language that didn't match any Union dialect. A research outpost on a dead moon reported a signal buried in a radiation spike. 3 pulses, a pause, then 3 more. It repeated once every hour. Some ignored it. Others traced it. It pointed to Earth. And then the messages came. Not from the Union. Not from any recognized power. From those who had been watching. Waiting. Hiding in the cracks of empire. Small species. Broken fleets. Silent systems long believed extinct. The ones who had bowed and regretted it. Some were a whisper. Some were warnings. Others were just noise, scrambled and damaged by the journey. But one message made it through clean. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't a threat. It was a story. A data package buried in layers of encryption, carrying historical logs, tactical footage, and raw, unsanitized truth. The sender was anonymous. The content? Unforgettable. It showed a planet not unlike Earth, lush green, full of life. Then it showed the Union arriving. First with ships, then with envoys, then with factories. Cities turned to mining platforms. Forests stripped for resources. Children separated from families for cultural alignment. Species reclassified as labor stock. The final clip in the file was short. Just 5 seconds. A single word carved into metal with what looked like claws. Mistake. That was all. But it was enough. Because it confirmed what Elias Rourke had said from the beginning. The Union didn't offer peace. It offered obedience. And Earth had been right to say no. The leak changed everything. It hit Earth's networks like wildfire. People weren't scared anymore. They were angry. What started as a resistance became a mission. We weren't just surviving now. We were exposing. And the galaxy? It wasn't laughing at us anymore. It was watching. Harder than ever. Some with hope. Others with fear. Because if Earth, a backwater, undeveloped, chaotic planet, could defy the Union and survive, what excuse did they have? Across Earth, new factions formed. Scientists who once studied alien biology were now creating countermeasures. Engineers built defense systems with scavenged Union tech, turning it inside out. A new generation of programmers designed AIs not just to defend, but to speak, to think, to translate the whispers flooding in. One of them, an AI named Ardent, became something more. It could hear patterns in the static, could string together fragments from dozens of alien tongues and make sense of it. And it found something buried deep in the noise. A call sign, a group, a name, the Broken Accord. Ardent decrypted more every day. The Broken Accord was real. A coalition of defectors, survivors, and ghosts. They had no homeworld, no flag, just a belief that the Union was wrong. They didn't broadcast openly. They didn't stage grand battles. They watched. They learned. And now they were listening to Earth. Their first true message came one night, as Ardent stitched fragments together from signals hidden in a passing asteroid's radiation trail. Just 5 words. Hold the line. We're coming. Reed Walker, now part of Earth's defense grid, stared at that message on a cracked terminal screen. He wasn't a general, wasn't a scientist, just a mechanic who'd turned into something else. And in that moment, he realized something. Earth wasn't alone anymore. They came at dawn. Not to talk, not to threaten, to end it. The Union didn't send another envoy. They sent a fleet. 15 warships. Black. Silent. Monolithic. Each one the size of a small city, capable of orbit-to-ground annihilation. They hovered above the atmosphere, just close enough to be seen, just far enough to be unreachable with conventional weapons. A shadow fell over the Earth. News anchors didn't speak. Air traffic was grounded. Military channels went quiet. No one needed to say it. Everyone already knew. This was it. The final offer, sent down in a compressed, untranslated burst. Cease all transmissions. Stand down all defenses. Submit to reclamation. You have 60 minutes. There was no room for misinterpretation. Earth had made its choice. And now, so had the Union. At the Global Command Network, deep beneath the Rockies, Reed Walker, now head of field response operations, stared at the countdown blinking across every screen. 55 minutes. The world waited. Some in bunkers. Some in prayer. Some in silence. And then, Elias Rourke appeared on every broadcast channel. Live. Unfiltered. Unshaken. Just like he had the day he said no. His voice was quiet. Controlled. But every syllable cut like thunder. You've waited for us to crack. You've waited for us to kneel. You think that by surrounding us, you've won. He paused. Let it hang. Wrong planet. Behind him, a screen lit up. It wasn't the Union fleet. It was ours. Not as big, not as sleek, but moving. Fast. Crafted in old hangars, disguised in cargo bays, born from the blueprints of 1,000 scavenged ships. Silent fighters. Stealth cruisers. Pulse disruptors. Some of it barely held together with duct tape and willpower. But it worked, because humans didn't build perfect ships. We built ships that survived. The Union didn't understand it. That was their mistake. Elias spoke again. This is our sky. You came here thinking we were fractured, that our freedom was a liability. He leaned forward. You're about to learn what freedom really costs. The signal cut, and Earth launched. The first strike wasn't a missile. It was a virus. Ardent, our AI, born in the blackout, had slipped into Union channels weeks earlier. Learning. mapping, waiting. And now, it struck. The Union's comms went dark. Their internal sensors scrambled. Ships began turning against their own networks, firewalls imploding like collapsing stars. And then Earth's fleet punched through. Fast, ruthless, surgical. We didn't try to win with numbers. We won with chaos. We hit them from blind angles, crashed through their shields with physics-defying maneuvers, used the debris of their own ships as cover. The Union tried to adapt. They tried to stabilize. But they weren't fighting a planet anymore. They were fighting a species. And for every human ship shot down, 3 more found a weakness and drove through it like a hammer through glass. The battle didn't last a day. It lasted 11 hours. By the time the dust settled, only 4 Union ships remained intact. They didn't stay. They retreated, silent, faster than they came. And Earth? We stood under a sky still smoking with fire trails and falling debris. And we knew we hadn't just survived. We'd drawn the line, not with treaties, not with negotiation, but with resistance. And somewhere out there, among the stars, others saw it too. Because 3 days after the battle, the whispers got louder. One by one, rogue signals came flooding in. Encrypted, layered, urgent. A dozen species, some unknown, some thought extinct, each one saying the same thing. Earth stood. Now so will we. The Union had numbers. They had systems. They had history. But after the Battle of Earth, they had something else. Doubt. Because they couldn't understand how they lost. They analyzed our tactics. They studied our weapons. They scanned our wreckage, recorded our broadcasts, even interrogated captured ships. But they still didn't get it. Because they weren't fighting machines. They were fighting humans. And we didn't play by the rules. They expected structure. We gave them chaos. They expected strategy. We gave them instinct. They expected silence after our victory. But we didn't stop there. We took the war to them. Not with fleets. Not with invasions. But with disruption. Sabotage. Unpredictable moves that didn't come from generals or politicians. They came from artists, coders, farmers, ex-cons with engineering backgrounds, and teenagers with drone kits. Every time they adapted, we adapted faster. We'd never been given a place in the stars, so we carved one. Every outpost we built was off-grid. Every signal we sent was layered in misinformation. We didn't just fight in space, we fought through space. We sent fake messages to lure Union scouts into minefields. We disguised fighter pods as meteor showers. One unit launched 1,000 paper-thin satellites shaped like Earth ships just to scramble their targeting systems. They called it reckless. We called it Wednesday. Our unpredictability became a language, a warning. The Union even developed a term for it in their command protocols. Human drift, defined as unforecastable behavior with no discernible logic or repeatable pattern. Dangerous, unstable, uncontainable. To them, that was a problem. To us, it was identity. We didn't just fight harder. We fought smarter. We used emotion, memory, fear. One rebellion cell hijacked a Union broadcast and played footage of Earth's forest burning during the first siege. Then cut in live footage of a group of children planting new trees where fire once scorched the ground. No threats, no demands, just resilience. That one clip sparked 3 minor uprisings across distant worlds. Because for the first time, people out there saw what the Union never wanted them to see. Hope. Not the polished kind. The messy kind. The kind that bleeds, limps, loses, but still stands. The kind that wears scars with pride. We didn't come to the galaxy to rule. We came to remind. Remind them what freedom looks like when it refuses to die. Even Ardent, our AI, started changing. It learned from us. Adapted to our chaos. Not just calculating moves, but feeling intent. Emotion and algorithms. Guts in a grid. And when it spoke, it didn't sound like cold code anymore. It sounded human. The galaxy had never faced anything like it. Species bred for peace. Bred for loyalty. Bred for control. Now watching a planet of stubborn, creative, fire-hearted beings tear through every system they thought was unshakable. We weren't trying to be heroes. We weren't trying to be rebels. We were just trying to be free. No chains. No throne. No saviors. Just grit. And every time the Union tried to reassert its order, Earth's response was the same. We're not part of your order. They sent more ships. They lost more ships. They tried propaganda. We hacked their feeds and replaced them with footage of our grandmothers yelling at their drones. They tried silence again, but the whispers had become a flood. And in every corner of the galaxy where oppression still wore a pretty face, someone, somewhere, was now painting the words on a wall, on a screen, on the side of the stolen ship. The human way. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't polite. But it worked. It started on a moon no one cared about. A mining colony buried beneath the ice. No weapons. No ships. Just workers. For years, they followed the rules. Mined quietly. Paid tribute. Lived in the dark. Then someone painted a message on the wall of the central tunnel. 3 words. Earth still stands. No one claimed it. No one erased it. The next day, the Union's data core there was sabotaged. And the day after that, the Union lost contact with the entire moon. They blamed interference. But what really happened? They let hope Indiana. And once hope gets in, control cracks. Earth had never asked anyone to follow us. We weren't trying to lead. But our defiance lit a fire in places we'd never seen. And suddenly, the galaxy began to move. In silence. In signals. In small, dangerous acts. A comm station in the Nabari Ring stopped filtering transmissions. A slave ship never arrived at its scheduled checkpoint. A Union ambassador was denied entry for the first time in 300 years. Not with violence. Just a closed door. That's how it starts. One refusal. Then another. Then another. And soon, the chains don't hold anymore. Earth kept going. Not with armies. With connection. Whispers turned to conversations. Old languages rediscovered. Dead cultures reawakened. The Union tried to spin it. Said we were corrupting the galactic order. They weren't wrong. We were. But not with bombs. With choice. We didn't give orders. We asked questions. Simple ones. Why do you need their protection? Why can't your planet speak for itself? Why haven't you seen your sun in 100 years? And in every system where those questions were asked, something began to shift. Not loudly. Not all at once. But steadily. Because freedom doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it walks in quietly and dares you to open the door. Back on Earth, we kept building. Not just defenses, alliances. Species we'd never heard of before sent us encrypted messages. Some offered ships. Some offered tech. Some just wanted to be heard again. And we listened. One race, once thought extinct, emerged from a gas giant's orbit. They'd hidden for centuries, believing the Union had crushed everyone worth believing in. Then they heard about Earth. Not through Union reports. Through the whispers. They called us the unwritten. Because we hadn't been in the history books. And yet here we were, rewriting the end. The Union grew nervous. They accelerated patrols. Sent out stabilization fleets. But it was already too late. Because the fear was gone. And once fear dies, chains don't hold. The Union sent us another message. A final one. No voice. No face. Just text. We are willing to renegotiate terms of reentry. It was meant to sound like mercy. But everyone knew what it really was. A white flag in different words. Reed Walker stood in front of the New Earth Council, a room full of humans and aliens alike, and read the message out loud. Then he looked up. We're not re-entering anything, he said. This galaxy is being rebuilt, and Earth isn't asking to join. He looked around the room. We're inviting others to leave. There was no applause, just silence. That rare kind of silence that happens when truth lands and nothing more needs to be said. Because the galaxy didn't need a new empire. It needed a choice. And Earth? Earth had become the proof that choice was still possible. The stars were quiet again. Not in silence. In stillness. Because the galaxy wasn't ignoring Earth anymore. It was listening. Watching. Waiting. Ships no longer hovered above our skies in threat. They arrived with curiosity. With respect. The Union didn't vanish overnight. But it wasn't the same anymore. It fractured. Some parts dug in deeper, desperate to hold on. Others let go. They opened their doors, released their grip, allowed worlds to decide their own futures. It wasn't peace yet, but it was movement. And Earth? We didn't take a throne. We didn't raise a flag. We didn't want to rule the stars. We just wanted to be heard. And now we were. The galaxy learned our name, not from military reports, but from stories. The kind that spread faster than light. The kind that mattered. Stories of kids who hacked war drones with secondhand laptops. Of pilots who painted poetry on the hulls of their fighters. Of rebels who played jazz while dodging plasma fire. Of a girl named Sarah who once said no in the middle of nowhere and shook an empire with it. And of a planet that refused to kneel, not because it was the strongest or the smartest, but because it remembered what freedom felt like. One day, long after the fighting cooled, a new satellite was launched from Earth. Not for war, for message. No encryption, no weapons, just a beacon, a living broadcast. It didn't show flags, or borders, or military strength. It showed faces, laughter, arguments, children in muddy fields, old men sitting under trees, dancers in the streets, flames at night, cities alive and chaotic and human. And then one voice. Not a president, not a general, just a voice. Calm, steady, heard in every language. We're not perfect. We're not clean. We make mistakes. We fail. We fall. But we get back up. And we don't belong to anyone. No treaties. No chains. Just freedom. The transmission was received in over 40 systems within the first week. Some deleted it immediately. Some saved it. And some passed it on. In dark rooms and hidden places, leaders whispered about it. People asked to hear it again. Because it didn't sound like propaganda. It sounded like truth. Back on Earth, Reed Walker walked through a rebuilt city. A place once burned, now blooming again. Children played near a statue, made not of any one hero, but of a hand, open, reaching upward. A message, a reminder. He looked at the sky, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel heavy, just endless. He smiled and whispered to no one in particular. They heard us. Far above him, stars shifted, ships moved, worlds turned, and somewhere, light years away, someone who had never heard of Earth leaned forward to listen. Because now, they knew what freedom sounded like.